Setting up your meeting.
Yay!
Yes.
Hello.
Okay, now we're setting up your meeting. All right, we are totally live now. Okay, good. All right. Hey, everyone. I'm so happy to have you on this live stream. I have a special guest today to share with you. I have Joseph Onesta, who is a hypnotist, and you help people with all sorts of things using hypnosis. But one of the things that caught my attention recently is that you posted a picture of the first wedding that you officiated.
Yeah.
And I think, like a number of hypnotists that I know now, you have a former career of being a minister.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought that was something I wanted to talk to you about. And how that influenced your journey of thought and belief and faith. Because also you have a really cool book that you wrote about this, Uneasy Faith. And yes. And so, yeah, I was just like, there's a lot of stuff to unpack. So thank you. Welcome to my show.
Thanks. It's great to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah. So, how old, so was that the career as a minister, was that your first career, beginning?
They sort of happened simultaneously. I was ordained in 1987. Mm-hmm. I graduated with my master's degree in English to teach at the university.
Okay.
So the two went together. As a minister, I was what we call a tent maker, which meant that I was bivocational. I had a job that I made money at, and that I worked with, usually with very poor people, so that the church could never really support me as a minister. So I had to support myself. In fact, if it weren't for my paycheck, sometimes we wouldn't have had heat.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is interesting. Okay. So, I guess what I wanted to explore from your perspective, because you're a hypnotist.
Yes.
So I wanted to talk about some of the things about religious ritual and religion and how it intersects with hypnosis.
Well, I can. The first thing that I think most people would recognize is that if you're a hypnotist and you go to a church meeting, particularly large church meetings like mega churches, there is a very sort of hypnotic process going on there. Although I don't think that they are completely aware that it's hypnosis. They kind of downplay. In fact, a lot of Christians, for example, think that hypnosis is evil, like it's mind control or something. So, but there's a lot of hypnotic skill going on in there from just the whole sort of structure of the service itself, from the singing at the beginning to the message and to the collection of the plate, even, the passing of the plate. It's all sort of engineered. And I know that sounds like I'm cynical, but it's effective persuasion, and those people go there for that.
I mean, I don't want to say this.
Yeah.
I keep trying. Are you hearing an echo?
No, I'm fine. Are you hearing an echo?
I am hearing an echo.
Okay, sorry.
I'm just gonna stop using my headphones and it will be fine.
Okay.
All right. So, what was I gonna say? No, I lost my train of thought. So
no, that's okay.
Yeah, if we didn't have it planned, now I can't hear you.
Okay.
If we didn't have it planned, it wouldn't be as effective. I think that people really like that pre-programming part.
Right. Absolutely. And it's comforting because once you get there and you know what to expect, then you relax into it. And Marion, I do this with my clients as well, like people who've never been hypnotized. Sometimes they come in, they're a little nervous or they're curious, like they want to watch it. And sometimes I'll just let them know. I said, look, on your first session, if that's you, if you don't give yourself to the process, it's not going to be really I don't know what they're expecting, but it's not going to be this sort of amazing thing that they're expecting. And I'll say, look, for some people, it's the second session because now you know what to expect.
Right.
So it's the same.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right. So there's like so much of this religious rich, it's like hypnotic.
Yeah.
And that's a huge part of what people get out of it. And also, so I wanted to just have you zoom in on the fact that there's so much of the religion that is against hypnosis. What do you make of that?
Well, as a hypnotist, one of the first things I wrote was this blog post, and it's still on my website. I don't keep the blog up, but it was, is hypnosis unchristian? That was like the very first thing I wrote as a hypnotist. And the truth is that they believe, many Christians believe, that hypnosis is mind control. Some of the more fundamentalists, Christians would even believe it's demon, like installation of demons or things like that. I've had people back away from me, like, oh my gosh, you're the devil. And here I am as an ordained minister of the, I'm still ordained. I just don't do it anymore. And, that idea. And so, if there are any Christians out there, or people who wonder, what an argument they could use with Christians or something that they could strategize, the book of Romans is very telling. I don't know if you want me to go into that kind of detail, but the Apostle Paul, in two different places in the book of Romans, he makes these statements that indicate that if he had known about hypnosis, he would have participated. Because the one thing that he says is, let your lives be, or let you be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Now that's a very, very powerful statement. Be transformed by the renewal of your mind. But then later in the book of Romans, he says, the good that I want to do, I don't do, and the thing that I don't want to do, I do. Now, whose mind has been more renewed, at least in terms of the Bible, than Apostle Paul? So what's he saying there? Most Christians, when they want to renew their mind, what they do is they listen to Christian radio, they listen to, Christian music, they sing songs, they go to prayer meetings, they read their Bible, and they go to Bible study. That's what that's just like, I'm going to be honest, it's like going to a talk therapist, except that in the talk therapy, they're just saying, so how do you feel, or how does that make you react? Whereas the minister in the group is actually telling them how to feel or how to react. My husband and I had a small Christian home group for a while called Pittsburgh Open-Minded Christians. It's in my book, we talk about it. And, the thing that stopped it was that it was getting too pastor-centered. I did not tell anybody at that point in my career, would not tell anybody what to believe. And we were open to all kinds of Christians, even the ones that strong Christians say aren't Christian. So, anyway, so the point is that it's not an unchristian thing. And in fact, some of the best hypnotists who know what they're doing are, in fact, people of expressed faith. Although, I have to admit that my expression of faith isn't what it used to be, just because I'm not a closed-minded, I'm going to say it out loud, I'm not a closed-minded bigot. I'm completely open-minded. Can you hear me? I can't hear you, but you can hear me? Okay, I don't know why I can't hear you, but that's okay. I can keep going. You mentioned something about the Hierophant, about the tarot and the Hierophant, and I want you to know that in my spiritual exploration, I explored everything. When I had to deal with my own spirituality, I was challenged in such a way that that I had to question even the very premise of my faith. And I chose, because I had to come to terms with my sexuality. Christians believe that a lot of Christians, not all, a lot of Christians believe if you're gay, you're going to burn in hell. And if you are a Christian, you're not. And in fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn on chat on my end. So if you wanted to ask me a question,
Well,
you could
try
put
this
it in.
now. I hit the
Oh,
mute button on my microphone. That was what it was. Well,
oh,
this
all
is
right.
now I know what was going on, and I think, and I got rid of the echo, so that was super distracting.
Great.
I couldn't talk and hear myself talking in my ears at the same time.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, the Hierophant. All right. So that was very challenging because mainstream Christians, at least in the incarnation in which you were experiencing Christianity, were having a
Right.
problem with homosexuality. And I think that that's something that the Christians and people that are kind of grappling with their faith, they still deal with that today.
Right. Right. Which was the subject of the book, my book,
Right.
Uneasy Faith. It was really about how I came to terms with who I am as a Christian and as a minister and as a gay man.
I think that it is a really interesting question how you kind of make sense of the tradition that you were a part of, and then how you own your own kind of truth within that framework or without that framework, however, whatever that means.
I kind of stepped outside that framework because if I expressed how I think today, most Christians would look at me and say, I don't think you're a Christian anymore.
Right.
And quite frankly, when I look at the way most Christians behave,
yeah, you're like, that doesn't seem like Christians to you either.
Yeah. So it's like, well, we just have a different way of understanding and accepting. When my husband and I first made our group, it was called Pittsburgh Open-Minded Christians. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was designed for people who had been harmed or abused in church. And so, and I went around to a few ministers that I know here in Pittsburgh, and I talked about, I was grappling with the idea, and I asked about a statement of faith. Like, what should I say we believe? And I said they said to me, well, why don't you just use the Apostles' Creed or the Nicene Creed, very similar statements. And I just looked at them and I said, that would leave out the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Mormons, the Seventh-day Adventists. That's going to leave out a lot of people. Right. And the way they would look at me, and it's like, well, they're not Christian. And I said, wait a minute. I literally looked at them and I said, do you honestly believe that there are no sincere Christians in those churches? I'm not here to correct their doctrine. Right. But there are people who have developed a relationship with God and a spirituality, and to tell them that, oh, it's all wrong, all of a sudden and they sort of distance themselves from me. And it's like, okay, you know what? Obviously, we're not on the same page. Not even if we're reading the Bible, we're not on the same page. So I'm okay with that. And the group was amazing. And we had, every kind of Christian you can imagine, from Gnostic to, we just had them all. And every one of those people had been damaged emotionally, if not physically, in church.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
That is a big thing. I think it's a big thing, like with any group. I would say it's not even particular to religion, but any group. Like you could even have a hypnosis group that could be like that.
Oh, sure. There is, actually. I know
there
one.
probably are. Yes. I would not know. I was watching, I found a podcast on YouTube that I've been really interested in, which is called Esoterica. And it is this scholar who goes into the history of religion and spiritual practices and religious practices, all arcane magical stuff, and talks about kind of like the overlap and then the distancing that different religions and spiritualities have with each other, and also magic. And also he talks about how in the Talmud, actually, what Jesus did performing miracles, and it's sort of the basis by which Christians elevate him. That's what makes him special, right? But he said that in Jesus' time in the Talmud, there were many other
Sure.
people that were doing that.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so that is part of why the Jews are kind of like, meh, like, he did these great things, so did other people. And some people might even argue, well, miraculous things continue to happen. So yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. Oh, just that religion itself, like, I think that a huge benefit of it, and you can tell me what the benefit is to your mind as well. I think one of the big benefits is that it is something that is around which people can form a community and help each other learn and grow and be kind of like have some social cohesion. And it's also kind of a framework for making meaning of your life, which I think is important to mental health. But I think also, like, if you were to really kind of go back through how all of this kind of evolved and came to be, like, there's not really necessarily like a historical, I don't know. I think that what exactly the Bible is based on is very debatable.
Yeah. Okay. So the thing is, and I doubt that there are any fundamentalists or evangelicals watching this, but if they are, if they are, the Bible is living and active and sharper than any two-edged sword, able to divide soul and spirit. That's a Bible verse.
Yeah.
If what people, particularly fundamentalists who take the Bible literally, what they have done is they've sucked the life out of there. If I read the Bible today, it says very different things to me today than it did 25 years ago or in 1987 when I was ordained.
Right.
It says very different things. So and for me, that is the living and active part. That as I grow, so does that message and the ability for me to come in contact with spiritual essence.
That's exactly how trauma resolution works too.
Yeah.
We have a remembrance of something traumatic that happened to us. Usually it's in reframing it,
right,
understanding it in a new way. And
right.
That is how we resolve trauma.
Yes, because we see it in a different light, right? And so, but if we stagnate, and those religious communities, I'll tell you the thing that I miss about church. Of course, I couldn't be myself in that environment, but the thing that I miss is that sense of community, that sense of family, and that sense of belonging. The difficult part is that it is dictated from the outside in. So when you are, let's say you're someone who responded to an altar call, which is come up and get saved, you responded to that immediately. The indoctrination sort of starts, and so this is what you need to believe. This is what we know is right, and you get locked into this idea that if I question, if I doubt, I must not truly believe. And in my own walk, in my own experience as a minister, I came to the point where I realized there is a conflict going on inside me. And I believe me, I spent a lot of time waiting for God and praying the gay away. I did it, a lot. And you can't tell me that I was insincere because I bloody know better.
Yeah.
Right. So I came to the point where one night I was having spiritual crisis. I'm in Venice Beach, California. I'm looking out at the sky. My friends are in the apartment, and I'm out there praying. Very nice people who took good care of me. And I reached my end. I had fought so long, and every place along the way, I was looking for God to lift this curse from me. Believe me, if you could choose to be straight, I did. It just doesn't work.
Right.
So I remember saying, look, talking to God like that. Look, on the one hand, I'm gay. I can't stop this. I can't fix it. I can't change it. So I'm going to burn in hell, right? On the other hand, I'm a Christian. I believe, and I'm not going to burn in hell.
Mm-hmm.
And I just basically said, you know what? You figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to live my life. I don't know what's going to happen to me, but I'm tired of waiting for this to be fixed. I don't know. I'm just not going to do this. And I will tell you, I know people who have lived very sexually repressed, messed up lives because they couldn't do what I did. And I'm not saying I'm wonderful. I'm just saying I came to the end.
Do you have any survivor's guilt about that?
No.
Okay, good.
No.
Like, I know some situations that I've come through, and I see some people that weren't able to come through that, and I had to even almost process that, you know?
I don't even pity them.
Right.
And I'm not angry about them, and I'm not saying that they're not sincere.
Right.
What I'm saying is I don't understand their relationship with God. And yeah.
You know, I grew up Baptist, and I will say this is something that I think that you and I are kind of on the same wavelength about this. You have like an authentic relationship with God. My authentic relationship with God was bigger than what could be contained by the church.
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
You know?
And I'll be honest with you, I don't often use the word God anymore, not only because when you say God, Christians have a very specific definition of that.
Right.
And the people that I have to be honest with you, the people that I like hearing the most are the NDE people, the near-death experience people. And there was a hypnotist named Newton who he sort of discovered life between lives, hypnosis.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't practice that kind of hypnosis. I mean, I probably could, but I don't like, it's like a 5-hour session.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Kind of like a Dolores Cannon style thing.
Yeah. I don't want to do 5 hours of anything.
No.
So, you know, and you wrap these people up in a blanket and put them on the floor, and I'm just not going to, that's not me.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there.
So, but I love the way they talk. And their language, one of the things they say is that they can't express in human language what they now understand because of their near-death experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my experience without the near-death experience. I mean, I sort of went on this journey where I literally left the country. I stepped down from the ministry and left the country. And I went to Japan, where I thought I would be on this sort of pilgrimage to cleanse myself and come to terms with who I was. And I did, although it didn't turn out the way I expected it to. And that's all right too. But, you know, you mentioned the Hierophant to me, and I wondered, I have a question for you, if I may.
Sure.
Do you read tarot?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So do you read inversions? Like if the card comes out upside down?
Oh, I'm learning that. It's not something I'm as good at as upright.
All right. Well, here's the thing. That Hierophant has two sides.
Oh, totally. Yeah, let's talk about that.
So the Hierophant is this symbol of the Pope, spiritual guidance. You're supposed to believe and trust, right?
Well, it's
So,
also, I think of it as it could be church, it could also be government. It's like, I think of it as like institutionalize anything.
yes, okay, so and then there are, so, and it depends on you how you're going to read, whether it's face up and you see it that way, or if it's upside down and you see it that way, because I
Mhm.
see two distinct, very clearly different messages.
Mhm.
The first is institutional, get in line, you've got to get this right, and if you don't get this right, you are messed up, you
Mhm.
are doomed. This is the way it is,
Mhm.
which I think is quite ugly, quite frankly. I just
Totally.
think it's ugly. But then there are people who have gone through the journey, who become these amazing beings. And they're not the people that you think. That's
Right.
never, I will tell you, it is never the pastor of the church.
Oh, yeah. That's one of the tragedies of just kind of the way that the human mind works. But the people that most want leader positions are often the least suited to
Right. And
that.
the person more suited is that person with the bucket and pail mopping the bathroom floor after the service.
Yeah. Or the person that doesn't want the responsibility of people idolizing them,
Right.
you
Yes,
know?
absolutely. Absolutely. So you mentioned esoteric movements.
Mhm.
There is a saying um, that two that I'll share with you, and you've probably heard them both. The first is, where the student is, so shall the teacher be.
Mhm.
And so when I came back from Japan, I went to work at a place called AIDS Project Los Angeles. And one of my volunteers was a shaman, a woman who was a hypnotist and an amazing human being. There was another hypnotist in the group. I still see him around. Just saw him at Hypnothoughts, Timothy Trujillo. I don't know
Oh,
if you
wow.
know Timothy.
Yeah, I do know who
So,
he is.
so he's great. And so, but Frances was this amazingly, I thought she was kind of nuts,
Mhm.
but she was right there. And she would say things to me that would make me think. And honestly, I grew leaps and bounds as a human being because of her. So where the student is, so shall the teacher be. And I have no doubt that while she helped a lot of my clients, like they would come out of her sessions and say, oh my gosh.
Mhm.
But so there's that one. And the second is along the esoteric movement. If you take a conservative Jewish person, a fundamentalist Christian, and a very, very strict Muslim, and you put them in a room together, none of them are coming out alive because they all believe they're right.
Or,
But if,
I think that they could also prioritize the human. I noticed this in my family dynamics. I noticed that somebody might have a particular ideology that they identify with strongly, and they
yeah,
have ideas about how all those other people out there are. But then, we all have to get along for dinner on holidays. So, then we
well,
kind of make it
and
work.
and that's when love takes over. I have a great story about that. That's when love takes over. When I was a pastor, there was a family that I lived with, and the husband and wife, very, very conservative. And we still talk today. We still spend time. We still call each other brother, and you know, and their children call me Uncle Joe. I mean, that's we're still very close. And the son one day asked me, he said, "How is it that my parents still talk to you?" And I said, "Unconditional love.
Yeah, it's love.
It's love."
Yeah.
And yeah, they don't think they don't think I'm right anymore.
Hmm.
Right? They think I'm wrong somehow, but so are they. And if you took three esoteric a Sufi, an esoteric Christian, and a Jewish guy in the Zohar, right? The esoteric, and you put them in a room together, they come out arm in arm because they find, oh my gosh, you say that too? That's exactly, and it's amazing. It's just amazing. So when I'm around people, if they want to fight on spiritual, I mean, I can play Christian verses, Bible verses with anybody, but I don't do it. I just look at them and say, you know, the only difference between you and I is very small. You think you're right. And I know in some way we are both wrong. Because spirit, God, the source, as the NDE people call that being.
It would be arrogant to assume that we could know.
Right. They just say, too big to define. Too big to define. And so when we find room for commonality, I mean, I'm not, the first place I ever did hypnosis, I needed a space. I found this space in a pagan candle store. And that, you know, it was all the Wiccan people were there.
Oh, wow.
And I had a great time. We had a lot of fun, and they called me notice the definite article, the good Christian. Like, oh, he's the good one.
The one
because I wasn't bigoted, and I wasn't, you know. Wow, do I want to be responsible for telling someone else what to believe?
No. Well,
go ahead. You have
just
a question?
to kind of circle back to the Hierophant.
Yeah.
I know that there's so many people, and myself at points in my life, that really benefit from structure.
Yes.
I think that, I mean, like archetypally, you could think of it as maybe like father versus mother or something like that. But like, you know, having guidelines, rules, having a container, having some sort of, this is where this begins and ends, that can be helpful and useful. And it can also be limiting too. It can be limiting when it becomes dogmatic, when it becomes stultified, or when it becomes thought stopping, when it stops inquiry.
Right. Which
So
it almost universally does. But you're right. There are people who benefit from that.
And it could be a developmental thing too,
right.
I think.
Right. You know, I've seen it. I've been in the Christian world all my life, but you know, ordained in 1987. And I've seen people who, without that structure, their lives fall apart. And if they, and I'll even go as far as to say, if they need that level of dogmatism to keep their shoes tied, I'm all for it, as long as it is as nurturing as a parent who knows that the baby is going to grow up and think for him or herself.
Yeah.
If that's not part of the deal,
right,
that we have to adhere. I mean, people have sort of offered me assistant pastorships. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, come on our pastoral team. And it's like, I don't think I'm going to be comfortable not addressing what people truly feel and think without telling them what they should feel and think. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to tell them what they should feel and think. So I was toned it down. I haven't done it for a long time. And I don't think, even if I were offered unconditional pastorship, that I would take it. I don't think.
Yeah. It is, I think, I've noticed this with a number of people that have gotten very kind of prominent in public. Lots of people listen to what they say. They can almost become the victim of all those projections that people put on them. You know what I mean? Like,
We have it in the hypnosis world too.
we have what?
We have it in the hypnosis world too. There
Mhm.
are some hypnotists who, according to a lot of people, basically walk on water.
Mhm.
And I love them. I'll be
Mhm.
honest. I've not met anyone that I couldn't stand.
Right.
But the truth is that nobody walks on water.
Yeah. No, but everyone's human.
Everyone is human, and if you expect me to pay you, I don't know, what is it, $10,000 for a 3-day training?
Mhm.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But anyway, but there
Yeah.
are people like that, and
Totally.
it's fun.
Agreed. Totally agreed. Was there anything more that we wanted to kind of draw out about any of that? I love this conversation. I think that it's just a beautiful exploration of just kind of like how you integrate that experience. I thought that was really cool to think about how like reinterpreting the Bible too is kind of how we in our memory reinterpret trauma.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. Along those lines, I do get clients for
Mhm.
religious trauma because I don't know how they find me.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know. It's one of those amazingly bizarre things where we'll be working together for a couple of sessions and probably dealing with anxiety or worry, and then it comes out that there's some religious-based root.
Yeah.
And we end up shifting then into religious trauma. And I'm not talking about people who were just like sexually molested or something like that. There's a lot of that, but I'm talking about people who were psychologically or mentally abused.
Oh yeah. I have a lot of that too. A lot of that.
And they come, and one of the things that we do, and I this comes out of my own experience, is I ask them, so what is it that you believe? And they'll start telling me what they don't believe. And I'll say, I don't care what you don't believe.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know, what is it that you do believe? And if we have to get down to the smallest grain of, I believe that there's more to life than this one, or I believe that there isn't a power. Okay, that's good enough.
Yeah.
Because if we start there, everything else that was added to this, doctrinal package that you accepted, at some point in your life, everything else can fall away.
Mm-hmm.
But that can't. And even
Right.
if it will evolve, but giving people room to evolve at their own pace and to grow. In our group, in that Pittsburgh open-minded Christians group, what we would do is we would get together for a thing called Simple Supper. And we would, like a potluck meal, we would eat, and then we would take dessert and coffee to the living room. And somebody would read a verse that was chosen. What does it mean to you? And nobody was right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget, and I wouldn't correct anybody unless they were making other people feel like they were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It only happened once. But this woman, Jehovah's Witness, she's reading the Bible verse, and we're talking, and people are going around the room. And she looked up and she said, does this mean that God is not disgusted with me? I said, why would God be disgusted? He's not even disappointed.
Right.
And her eyes got really big. I said, he's not even disappointed. And of course, I used the he because that's the way she understood. But I said, do you believe that God knows everything? She said, yes. I said, well, then how did you surprise him to disappoint him?
Right.
How is that? She started to cry. And I don't know that she ever went back to the Jehovah's Witnesses because they kind of kicked her out. They call it disfellowship when they,
Yeah.
so, but I don't know where she went, after our little group, but I know she's a more developed human being.
Wow.
Because she was able to now see, oh, right, that's right. It's kind of stupid to think that I would disappoint God. Like God is going to send me a test to see what I do. That's crap. He already knows.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. So am I distracting you? Am I taking you in all sorts of directions?
I like it. I like it.
So,
No, I'm just like, my heart is touched by all of that. I just, I really, I value communities that support people in being who they are. Like that is one of my core values.
absolutely. Absolutely. And, I suppose I would add a little bit to that.
Mm-hmm.
Only like when I see, and I don't know if you would agree with me or not, when I can observe self-destructive behavior,
Mm-hmm.
what I will look and say, well, what's up with that?
Yeah.
You know,
Accountability, maybe.
so yeah, and so because I think a lot of people who are abusing themselves psychologically are really, they don't know that they're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
They think that's like, for all those years that I spent on my knees saying, God, lift this gay thing from, and I believe me, I was a Pentecostal, so I've had the demons cast out of me.
Mm-hmm.
Have I seen miracles? Yes. Have I put my hand on someone and have them fall down? Yes. Have I cast out a demon and seen someone writhing on the floor? Have I seen these things? Yeah. Do I know it? Do I understand what happened there? No.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, I mean, I thought I did, but I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah.
And who knows what
Yeah, I was just talking about this too with another friend this morning, that just knowing that you don't know, that's okay. It's okay to not know. It's okay to leave that in open space.
and to trust it.
Yeah.
To absolutely trust it. And this is another thing that the NDE people say. I don't know if you spent time with NDE people, near-death experience.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I haven't explored that rabbit hole yet, but go ahead.
Oh, it's a deep one.
Okay.
And but anyway, the thing is, when they talk about the learning journey of being human,
Mm-hmm.
they say things like, well, don't worry about making sure you get it right, because every step is learning, you're advancing. It's almost like you can't mess it up.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I absolutely love that, because when you think, oh my gosh, I've now realized something about myself that I feel needs to change. I need to grow. I need to develop. I shouldn't feel ashamed of it. I should be happy that I've grown to the point where I could recognize it. I didn't even recognize it before. Now I can see where I can grow. Now I can see where I can develop.
Yeah, I've learned something new.
Yeah,
So that means that there's no becoming smaller. There's only becoming bigger. There's only becoming more, only kind of growing to encompass that which you formerly didn't understand or know.
Yeah, that's right. And if you stay the same, who knows what your journey is really about? I have no idea.
Yeah.
But those people, one of the most beautiful pictures I've ever seen in my life. You can see them on the internet. We're at gay pride parades where people had these signs, I apologized, I was a prick in the name of Jesus. I'm sorry that I condemned you. And it's like, wow. Those people, I'd like to know from them, because they were on the other side of my journey. They were
Yeah.
the people that I was running away from, saying, look, you don't know me. And
Mm-hmm.
because you don't know me, you can't understand me.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't understand me, you can't accept me. Yet, as a minister, people came to me and confessed things to me. And I don't mean like in the Catholic sense, like they needed to be forgiven by me, but they needed to talk things out. People
Mm-hmm.
told me heinous things. I mean, I literally had to train myself not to remember that the next Sunday when I'm up at the pulpit, seeing them sitting in church.
Yeah.
It's like, I cannot have this in my mind.
What is that human need? I've had that happen to me too. People that wanted to kind of use me as a representative for all women and confess all their crimes against women or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I don't know what to do with that. I'm just gonna say, like, I'm glad that you're self-aware. Like, I will accept that you're repenting then, I guess.
Well, and I sometimes they need to just talk it out.
Right.
Sometimes they want to make sure that they're on the right track. Like
Mm-hmm.
people who, like when I first discovered what not white supremacy, but white privilege was,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't believe it was in me, but it was.
Yeah.
And so when I first discovered it, the first thing I did,
You wanted to pick on your black friends.
I went to my black friends and said, listen, and I come off this way, and it's like, no.
Right.
So, it is that. And I think it's a very human need. And if they had said to me, yeah, but I also knew that you were a great guy and not messed up, or you were just not
Mm-hmm.
very good, that would have been just as good. And that's how I feel when I meet those people who are dogmatic,
Mm-hmm.
or who are sort of wrapped up in a doctrine that they can't see beyond. And I just say, okay, this is what you need right now. And I am going to trust in life itself to put things in your path that will help you see what your next step is. That's in my mind. And sometimes with clients, they come to me and they're very dogmatic, and they'll say things like, I know you're a minister, will you pray with me before the session?
Mm-hmm.
I just look at them and say, I'll be happy to agree with you in prayer. You're going to have to lead that, because I don't know you.
Right.
And I'll agree with you in prayer, because I can agree with almost anything.
Right.
So almost, not everything, but almost.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's
when you were talking about that dogmatism, it came to mind. I have a relative that I've kind of cut off a little bit because he's so dogmatic, and I had this flash of compassion that, like, I think at the root of that, like, he really just wants to connect. Like, I mean, I think that, like, he's stuck in his way of thinking, but, like, it hurts him to think that all his family is going to go to hell. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know. I can see that's just, it feels bad. I am not going to change myself to please him, but I can have a little bit more compassion for that.
Have you had anyone yet call you and ask you to take their gay child and make them straight?
No, I've had people that try to get me to make their autistic children different, but I'll say, I think there's some things hypnosis can do. They can help if your child wants to learn how to regulate themselves to some extent. But I would say, don't ask your child to look you in the eyes if they don't want to. Why don't you just maybe accommodate them about that?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you just gave an autistic version of what I say to parents who want their child to be straight.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've had a number of people come to me and ask me for that. And I end up spending more time with the parents. And
Yeah.
say, you realize that you're probably the biggest source of anxiety in your son's life right now.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want him to go to hell.
Mm-hmm.
I think you need to. And I talk to them in their religion, their religious perspective. I'll say, do you think you love your son more than God does? There's a great book that I thought, you may have seen the movie. It's called The Shack. Have you seen that movie? It's a book that talks about really the notion of the Trinity, and it's sort of like a broader version. In that book, God is this throughout most of the book. God the Father, not this. There's also Jesus and the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is this ethereal Asian woman, and God the Father is this corpulent black woman. And then there's the ugly version of Jesus, like unattractive guy with a big nose and almost stereotypical. And but the things that the main character goes through, I read the book long after I had made my decisions, shall I say. And I thought, this is a healthy version. Whether it's right or not, it's a healthy way of viewing. And with like those fundamentalists, they're really rough. And I'll just say, you know what? I'm gonna stand before God the same way you are.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see how that works out for us. I'm comfortable. Are you?
Right.
And
I really do think that also there would be like a bit of resentment I felt from him, that I'm just kind of living my life and being happy and he is not.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's very confronting. It's very confronting to know that there are people. It's like when my weight loss clients tell me, I wish I could be like my sister. She could eat whatever she wants.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at them and say, well, let's think about what she wants to eat. Like, does she reach for a sheet cake from Costco, or does she reach for an apple?
Right.
Let's just think about that. And anyway, and I don't judge people. I mean, I used to be quite fat myself. I was 300 pounds.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to judge it. But I wish I were like them so that I could have my cake and eat it too, which is what they mean.
Have cake and eat it too, right?
Have you heard that?
Well, my personal approach, I try to make sure that there's some cake that I can eat kind of factored into everything.
Well, and there's a difference when like that's an old saying, to have their cake and eat it too, which means you want both sides. You want everything.
Mm-hmm.
And the only people that we know about that are like that are exceptionally greedy people. They are not only wanting what they have, they want what you have.
Right.
And that's not healthy.
Mm-mm.
It's just not healthy. And I should be happy that you have what you have. Yeah. And I should celebrate that.
Right. Yeah. When you're taking care of your own needs, when you're tending to your own internal health and mental garden, and community is an important part of that. But when we have our needs met, then we don't have that kind of resentment and envy and jealousy. And I try to, this is like part of my own personal practice, whenever I notice an emotion in myself coming up, then I try to unpack that, and I try to answer the question, what needs in myself am I not meeting?
Mhm.
What is this telling me about what I need to do in order to take even better care of myself?
Yes. And the reason, I love that. And for me, the reason is, I mean, I'm a lot older than you. That's obvious. But I don't know how much time I have left. If I live as long as my father, I've got another 20 years. If I live as long as my mother, I've got another 40. And so, actually 39, because she died at 100 and I'm 61. But
Nice.
the thing is, I have something to do here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I know what it is, at least today.
Mm-hmm.
And it may change later, but for now, I know what I need to do. And if I stick to that and I don't get distracted,
Mm-hmm.
then I am a happy camper. I'm satisfied with my life. I have a friend who's always trying to get me to up my marketing game
Mm-hmm.
and develop multiple six-figure incomes. And it's like,
Right.
what? I wouldn't know what to do with that much money. I don't want that much money. I don't need that much money.
Yeah.
If I had it, all I would do would be spend it. I'd probably become someone I don't even want to be. What I want is all I need is enough.
Yeah.
And if I need three multiple six-figure incomes, if I
Mm-hmm.
need it, I'll have it.
Right.
And if I don't, then obviously I'm doing all right now. I'm okay.
It seems to me that you, even if you don't wear the collar, or even if you aren't in the church, it seems to me as though your role in the community is still as a minister. You're just tending to the needs of the people that are in your circle, in your field.
Yeah. You know what? That's I'll be on. I don't talk like that, but it's true. You can't take the minister out of me.
Mm-hmm.
And when I accepted the ministry, it was an extremely humbling moment. I wouldn't say humiliating, but humbling moment,
Mm-hmm.
because I thought, people think I have something to offer. The reason I stepped down from the ministry, or tried to anyway, they didn't accept it. The reason I stepped down was I thought that I was not living up to what a minister should be.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 2 years that followed, because I left that church in the Bronx, New York, and I went to Japan for 2 years. I found out what it meant to be a minister in those 2 years. In fact, not only did I find out what it meant to be a minister, I found out what it meant to be a Christian, and I found out what it meant to be what fundamentalists might call a man of God. That's when people who are quite legalistic and they say he's a man of God,
Mm-hmm.
what they mean is he's overtly pious and they're envious, or they see him as a model. In Japan, when I was basically alone, I realized that a man of God is not a model. A man of God is an honest human being, stressing on the human. And if I can treat myself that way, I can treat everybody that way.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like this like I love Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not all of them, obviously.
Not all of them,
Okay,
but some of
one,
them. I'm gonna have Muhammad Sheikh on my channel pretty soon and coming this week. So
good.
yeah.
That's great. I want to see. So put me on the list.
Okay.
But I absolutely, I've had so many Muslim students who were such wonderful, wonderful students. I used to teach English as a second language, and I've taught people from all over the world, and I can tell you, we're not that different. We might have cultural differences, linguistic differences, and but we are not that different. And when people start talking about like this Islamophobia comes up, just say, really? How many Muslims do you know?
Yeah.
I mean, personally.
Right.
That you can talk to them. Oh, none? So you're just afraid of people who have dark skin and the women who cover their heads. That's your problem. You feel the same about nuns? Yeah. And it's like, I'm going to challenge them because I would feel absolutely, in fact, I would feel absolutely safe in a mosque, I would feel absolutely safe.
Yeah. Oh, you probably would be absolutely safe.
Yeah, I would feel perfectly, I wouldn't feel vulnerable at all, even if of course, they know that, I'm not a Muslim, I mean, at least not with a capital M. And, it's okay. Anyway, I don't know. Why just get us distracted? I'm so sorry.
No, I love the tangents. That's the whole point. Why don't we though? I think it's good moment for you to share the book that you wrote if people want to hear more along these lines.
Okay, so it's not going to show up on the screen, but
we can also just post a link to it. I'll post a link to it on YouTube.
It's Uneasy Faith. And it documents my journey from closeted, gay, frustrated Christian, scared, trying, and I was a good Christian. All the way to a moment when I realized that I couldn't in good conscience be myself and be that same anymore. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't like Christians or that I can't go to church or anything like that. I certainly can. But it documents that story. And I've had people who found it on Amazon. It's on Amazon. It's two kinds, right? It's in Kindle and it's also in paperback. It's a cheap book. I think it's $10.99 or something like that. I don't have a lot of money from books, but it's an honest, and how through these steps I came not only to accept myself for who God made me to be, I could celebrate it and love it and become, like I said, I found out what it meant to be a Christian. I found out what it meant to be a minister. And I found out what it meant. At least I learned a bigger picture of what it meant to be a man of God. And the NDE people would say a man of spirit.
Oh, that makes so much sense. Awesome. Yeah, this is, I'm so glad I got the time to connect with you. Thank you for making time for this.
I've had a great time, and we are very lucky that my neighbor's kids aren't playing outside because